Chelsea take on Bayer Leverkusen in the first of our two scheduled pre-season friendlies in what should be a great affair. So what do we have to do tactically in order to beat them? Well, today we're going to talk all about that, and it all starts with the lineup, so let's take a swift look at the Chelsea team that I would select for this game. I'll be putting our Chelsea side into our standard 4-3-3. This will change in-game and we'll talk about that in a moment. I expect a strong lineup, but with some of the new arrivals getting appearances. First up in goal will be Robert Sanchez. We haven't signed a new goalkeeper, so the Spaniard should remain as our number one. The back four is where the first of a few changes come from our bout versus PSG. I'm going to be putting in Reece James at right back once again. The centre-back partnership sees Trevor Chalobah retain his place, but Tosin comes in for Levi Colwill, who sustained a gutting ACL injury on Monday. He plays on the left instead. Finally, at left back is our second change. I would like to see new signing Yoral Hatto play in this left back / left centre back hybrid role for the first time. Moving into midfield will be staying the same as against PSG. Moises Caicedo starts in the deepest role, as is ever the case. Ahead of him are of course the creative duo of Cole Palmer and Enzo Fernandez, who are back to top form in the final. That just leaves the three attackers, and there will be more changes here. Though he's only trained for a few days, I'd be very surprised if we don't see Esteval play in some capacity. I'll be putting him in at right wing. On the opposite side is another new face. Jamie Gittins should hopefully debutise on the left wing. Finally, up top, it's a no-brainer. Joao Pedro stays in the starting 11, looking to add yet another goal to his already impressive tally. Before we talk tactics, I just wanted to let you guys know that our channel sponsor, GoGoalShop, is doing a flash sale on August 10th through to August 11th. You can get yourself both replica and authentic football shirts, just like this one, starting from just $9.99, and you can get an extra 15% off using the promo code MONO at checkout. If you're interested, links are down in the description and in the pinned comment as well. A big shout out to GoGoalShop for sponsoring the channel as ever. Now let's get back to the video. Alright, so here we have the Chelsea team in our 4-3-3, and I think the first thing we need to do is talk about the shape, and I often like to talk about the Chelsea shape. I think it's one of the most interesting things about our team, especially considering we've now started using this 2-2-4-2 system in recent times, and I did say in my recent video that I was highlighting that system how it sometimes stays as a 3-2-5, and I think that that's very kind of similar to what we will see in this game if we are to put out a lineup as kind of like similar to what I have. Now, the main reason for this is because obviously Levi Colwill is injured and will not be featuring for a long time, considering he's had a really bad ACL injury and has had to have surgery. I've put in Tosin Adarabioyo here, and though he's not a left footer and he's not usually a player that plays on the left of the defence, it will make sense when I move the players around here a little bit more, because I think what's kind of going to happen, and it's the reason why I've put Hatto in instead of Marc Cucurella, which seems blasphemous to leave Marc out of the lineup, but I think we're going to probably see a pretty kind of standard, 3-4-3 or 3-2-5 that we've been seeing in recent times, where James, as he can very often do, will invert into the midfield alongside Caicedo here. Chalobah will move out to wide right. Tosin will play as this central centre-back where he's been phenomenal in recent times, and then Hatto will play as this kind of hybrid left-back, left centre-back role, which is absolutely perfect for him. Now, obviously what this does is it creates the box in midfield that we often see. It leaves Esteval and Gittins as the really wide players, Joao Pedro as the lone striker, and then of course if we kind of need to push anyone further and we want to go a bit more into that 2-2-4-2 kind of system, we can see Enzo go a bit higher when he presses. Caicedo could obviously go a bit further, maybe James goes further if Palmer goes over to the other side, and we kind of go into that 3-1 setup that we sometimes do with the lone player. There is another option though, and that is all to do with James playing here. I've put in James just because I think we need our captain in these types of games. However, this could very well be Malo Gusto. And if we take James out of the lineup for a second, we can actually change how the lineup kind of stays, because what we could then do is actually bring Hatto into the centre. And though this isn't a position he's really kind of played, and we don't really know much about him in that regard, in comparison to someone like Marc Cucurella, for example, what we could then do is push, again, Enzo into the striker position like we kind of saw in the PSG game. Palmer goes to this side. Gusto plays on this kind of inside 10 role, but can also go wide if he needs to, and let Esteval come in here, and he can play central. He's very good at playing central, so he can definitely do that. And then we get the 2-2-4-2. There is obviously the option of playing Hato in this Gittins role and moving Gittins into the Enzo role. As I spoke about in the breakdown of this system before, it's very fluid, so pretty much anyone can kind of move into these roles, and we can all rotate, and that's a way we could do that. I don't think we would, just because, again, I don't think Tosin's particularly comfortable on this left-hand side. Perhaps we play Badia Shield and we can play this way, but for the most part, I think we'll probably won't play with Gusto. And though James could play in this kind of right wing back role, I think it's a much too kind of strenuous on him as a player to be able to do that. I don't think his body is capable of doing that anymore, so we'll probably just play the kind of more standard three at the back here, with Hato playing as this left centre back, as I kind of spoke about before. And again, like I often say, when we do have this box, it could very well be a diamond rather than a box, with Palmer going more as the kind of 10, central 10. James can be a bit higher here, which is kind of what we might see, because we saw how high he was getting up the pitch to press in the PSG game, so maybe he plays in a little bit higher. We kind of play this role as well. This also helps our kind of wide players get kind of isolated 1v1 against their fullbacks, because obviously someone has to come and stop Palmer in the centre here, and that kind of spreads them out a little. But for the most part, I do foresee us playing this box. I want to reiterate that when I make my starting 11s and I kind of put out my starting 11s for this channel, they aren't predictions in any way. They are just kind of, you know, fantasy lineups, things I want to see. Of course, I don't actually expect someone like Esteval to start immediately. I don't expect Gittins to start immediately, so these are just fantasy lineups. And speaking of fantasy, if you want to get involved in my Fantasy Premier League mini league, that is now up and running. So if you want to get involved in that and compete for possible prizes, you have to join the community Discord. The links will be down in the description as ever, so get involved if you want to do that too. Now, as we bring the Bayer Leverkusen team in here, we can see how it kind of matches up with our team. Now, there's not much tape on them from pre-season. The highlight packages and things are very, very short. And obviously with the new manager coming in, because they've got Erik ten Hag now rather than Xabi Alonso, this likely won't be the same team that we saw under Xabi Alonso, though the formation, from what I've seen, is largely the same. They play this 3 at the back system with 4 across the middle and 3 up top. They usually play a big target man striker like Schick here, and these 2 wide players usually kind of tuck in quite narrow and allow these wing backs to get forward really, really quickly and, you know, try and get the overlaps, get the ball into the box, that type of thing. What I want to talk about first, though, when it comes to this formation that they run, is just how similar it can be to ours and how it matches up with ours. Obviously, because they've got the top 3 as well and the back 3, that matches up really well. And if we kind of highlight all these like 1v1 matchups we see, we can kind of see where the spare man is, right? So we get Gittins and Esteval up here as well, right? So we've got these, and if we highlight all of these individual battles, you can see where the spare men are for both teams. For us, it's Enzo and Palmer in these central roles, and then for them, it's out wide here with their right winger. I think that's Artur and obviously Grimaldo on this left-hand side. And so it kind of shows like immediately what we can kind of expect from them. They're obviously going to try and play the ball to the wide areas. This is where the space is for their team. And if we just clear this up a little bit, a lot of the play that they will do in this game against us will come out on these wide areas. Now, this is probably going to be one of those cases where we see one of our wingers probably have to drop really deep and kind of almost play like a wing back themselves to get back. We've seen Pedro Neto doing this in recent times, so maybe he's kind of deployed so he can do that. We need to kind of, you know, be careful of this, especially on the left-hand side, because Grimaldo is really, really good. He's so, so good, especially his delivery is one of his best attributes. And I think that kind of what we've seen from Bayer Leverkusen in these recent games, which they've won pretty much all of their preseason games. They've done 3 already, I believe, or 4, including there was one where they played like the Flamengo under-20s, but I'm pretty sure they probably didn't play their first team in that. Again, no tape on that game, so unfortunately we can't really tell. But they are a team, again, and this is very common for a team from Germany, they are a high press, high line side. They love to get forward really, really quickly, put pressure on the player on the ball. They love to try and win the ball back, and then when they do win the ball back, they play very, very direct, right? They get the ball from, for example, I'm singling out Hato here, but say he loses the ball, they're immediately going to get these players forward. They're going to get bodies kind of running into these kind of areas in beyond our back line, get the cutbacks across, score from tap-ins. That's very stereotypically kind of German football, where they're very efficient with that type of thing. Their kind of whole ideology, just get into the box, put it across, tap it in, and they kind of celebrate the assist more than the actual goal. It's the same thing with Bayer Leverkusen. They do this very often. And again, with someone like Grimaldo on this left hand side, who's very, very good at his delivery, when he gets up high, that's a real big danger sign. And again, cutbacks into the middle, or even lofty balls into Patrick Schick, because again, he's a very, very decent target man. It's kind of what they aim to do. And again, with that high press and with that high line, as the centre backs kind of come up to the halfway line when they are in possession, it's going to be very demanding. And again, as they've already played 3 preseason games and we haven't, I do think that they will be the fitter side here. We've had 2 weeks of holiday, and though we've obviously had that Club World Cup run, I do think that our players might be a little bit off the pace with less training in the legs than Bayer Uvia. But regardless of that, obviously Leverkusen are going to step on us anyway. They're going to try and make it uncomfortable, try and make it hard for us to play out from the back. It's something we're very, very good at doing. Maybe that might be to their detriment if they do press too high and we've managed to play it around them. That's definitely something we can do. Get it into these kind of midfield areas, get the little flick balls around the corner, get it into Palmer, Enzo, play the ball into the box, get goals that way. Again, something we've been doing really well. And again, we saw it kind of very well against PSG, kind of letting them come onto us with pressure and then breaking on them. That's something we can definitely do against Bayer Leverkusen too, because they're a very similar side to PSG in that regard, of that they want to control the ball, they want to get on the ball and make that kind of possession-based football happen. When they get it into these central midfield areas with Palacios and Andrich, they love to play direct, go forward, get these kind of attacks going. So a similar type of thing that we saw with obviously Joao Neves and Vitinha in the PSG side, though the formations are different. It's a similar type of thing. Again, high press, win the ball back, play that high line, put pressure on, get the ball from mistakes, and then break on you with deadly counterattacks with the 3 front men. It's very, very similar to PSG. So hopefully we fare pretty well like we did in that game as well. Now, I speak about those kind of deep balls from midfield. One of the things that they do quite often, again, I'm bringing it back to Grimaldo, because he's a player that likes to not only get up high and kind of overlap and put the ball into the box, but he's a player that likes to get on the ball in quite deep positions and quite deep inside positions like this. And when we are kind of sitting off and our players are further back here, and though again I'm doing this just for an example, because we would have 4 players across the box here with obviously James dropping back again, but in these kind of scenarios, Grimaldo is a player that loves to get on the ball from deep and then play these really long looping balls to the back post, where a player can get on the end of and knock it back, or actually try and go for goal himself. Or again, Patrick Schick in the middle, who's a very, very good target man, kind of running into the back post area or even the front post area and trying to, get those headers in. It's something that they do very, very commonly. And yeah, so there's going to be a task for someone like James in this midfield area to get out to him and stop that from happening. Maybe even Chalobah, if he wants to be a bit more kind of aggressive and get up there, we know he can do that. If Esteval is tasked with having to play back and be, a bit more supportive and double up on people, that's going to be his target as well. And likewise, he's obviously their set piece taker from this left-hand side. Whenever they have corners from this left-hand side or free kicks, again, loopy balls to the back post is something to look out for. They will do that all day long. The last thing which I want to highlight from them is just how defensively solid they have been. Obviously, they've always had that kind of, hard to break down style, because they have the 3 at the back, which turns into a 5 when they kind of sit deep and defend their box. It's always going to be difficult to break this down when they sit like this, especially with their new signings that they brought in Kwanzaa and Flecken in goal. They have been very, very good for them so far. Flecken especially has been absolutely saving their bacon with some phenomenal saves in those preseason friendlies. Kwanzaa has already popped up with a couple of goals, I believe, as well of his kind of defensive work being as solid as it kind of always has been. But there is gaps in this defence, and I will kind of break that down because this is how we beat them. I fully think that if we play the football that we normally do, it will fare very well against this team. Obviously, I spoke about the way that we play out of pressure and how that kind of works against these type of high press teams. But the thing which I have noticed in these preseason friendlies from Bayer Leverkusen is that they are very, very weak and have quite glaringly obvious weaknesses in two specific areas. The first thing is that they are often quite actually caught out by high pressure themselves. Though they are a team that likes to do it, they have shown that they're a bit shaky when passing it out from these three centre backs, or if they're on the ball with a player here in the midfield and they're trying to like pass it backwards, a lot of the time they don't do it quick enough, and this player in this position can snatch the ball off them, spring a counter attack on them, and then get shots off on goal. And again, they've been quite lucky in a way that these have not really gone punished when they make these mistakes in recent times. Again, Flecken's been superb in that regard of stopping that from happening, or the players kind of gone away with it because of bad finishing. This is something they've struggled with. It's been something that we've done very, very successfully throughout the entirety of last season and the Club World Cup, is that high pressure style, that making people uncomfortable. We know how good someone like Caicedo and Enzo are at doing that and just putting on the pressure. And especially in a game like this where I've put in, for example, Gittins and Esteval, these are two young, hungry players that have a point to prove and are fighting for their place in the side now. And I think that especially Esteval will probably be a player that really wants to get onto, press high and kind of get people unsettled and make things for his team. He really wants to impress. And we often see it from new signings. They always kind of, put themselves about. Gittins on the other side, putting pressure on on Kwanzaa, for example, could be an avenue that gets us success. And we've seen from, again, that PSG game that we started really, really fast. We played really, really high up the pitch and we put that pressure on them and we made chances immediately. Obviously, there was that really good chance for Palmer in about 7 minutes through the game, which narrowly missed the left-hand side because it came from us kind of putting on that pressure and not letting them settle and get comfortable. Because again, though they play this kind of direct football at times and go kind of a bit route one to Patrick Schick from Grimaldo, for example, they are a possession based side that like to pass it around. They like to progress the ball from the back to the front and then get goals that way. They love those kind of neat passing moves. And if they aren't able to do that and they're not able to navigate the ball from this back line at the start, then it can really disrupt them. And again, we can hit them kind of on the break, as it were. Now, the second weakness, and the final thing we're going to really be speaking about today in depth, is this high line that they play. Obviously comes with benefits, with obviously the pressure it puts on the opposing team, but it also comes with a massive detriment. And it's something again that they've been caught out in these recent preseason games with, is that balls in behind have absolutely wrecked them at times. And again, if it weren't for heroics from Flecken and some poor finishing from some arguably weaker sides than them, they would probably have been punished and conceded goals. And we are a team that is much better than the teams that they have faced in preseason so far. We are a team that has now obviously very, very good finishers in the side. And all this space that they kind of leave open here, if the runs get timed like to perfection and we can get players like Gittins, who's very quick, like Esteval, who's very quick, like Joao Pedro, who loves to run into the channels, if we can get those guys on the ball in behind against this back line, we've seen that they've struggled at this. Obviously, Tapsoba, who was in the back line for one of their games, got a red card, basically because a player was running through on goal and he had to stop him somehow, and obviously he faltered. Now, if they are playing this kind of high line style and they're trying to put it into the box, for example, like this is just a very one of many examples that could happen. If they play a ball into Schick and, for example, Tosin wins the header and knocks it down and it goes to James and he can play it up to Enzo quickly. We know how good Enzo is at these kind of deep balls in behind. And if we're able to move the ball quick enough after winning the ball and get these balls in behind, then this is real danger on their goal, which they will not really be able to get back and deal with very easily because, again, they play so high up. And that goes hand in hand with something which, again, I think really suits our style of play, is that when you play these three at the back systems, and especially these ones that have these attacking wing backs that love to get forward, what it kind of does is it allows this space down this channel to be really, really exploitable, especially when these types of centre-backs like to get a bit further forward and, you know, try and get on the ball and play make. And we know this all too well because it's something that we have suffered when we do this inversion into midfield from our fullbacks. We always see that when we do this, that the one thing that really causes us unrest is players going down this wing and kind of, you know, staying wide to the touchline and getting the ball from switches of play and from just build up from the back. Whenever they get it out wide, it's a very big danger for us if we can't get our kind of, you know, our fullback back into position. They have this, but all of the time, because they only have the 3 players in defence here. Obviously, when Grimaldo, for example, on this left-hand side gets back, it's not as bad. But if he's, for example, gone up to play this ball into the box, which we eventually win, then he's not here to deal with Esteval getting on the ball if the ball goes to this side. And again, as a team that is set up to be really, really wide, and obviously we love to make our 1v1s out wide, what we can actually kind of do here is start really pulling them out of shape. If the ball, for example, goes to Esteval and he's running down this wing, whoever is in this left-hand sided role will have to come out here to stop him. And again, what this now does is open up this space in this role for Palmer to move into. If Esteval wants to cut onto his left foot, which he's very good at doing, and play him through, then he can. Again, maybe if this man is then marked and by this player, Joao Pedro is then through, it's this kind of calamitous situation that happens where there's not enough men to kind of get back and deal with it. And it all starts from that kind of those gaps in behind on the wings. And again, we're a team that, again, we love making those 1v1s. We like getting it to our wide players. That's literally what our whole entire system is designed to do. So if we are doing our normal system, I think we're going to have quite a lot of success. Apart from that, I think that genuinely, if we just play the same way that we have been playing in recent times, we play that same system and play the football that we can play, I think we're going to control this game pretty well, and we should comfortably win this game as long as we don't disrespect the opposition and we give it our all, as we know we can do. Now, I'll be doing a live watch along for this game later today on this channel. I'll be live streaming that, so if you want to come through and watch the game with us, then by all means, come along, let's have some fun. If you have any thoughts on this game, leave them down in the comments down below. I love reading every single comment and responding to as many as I can. Please leave the video a like, it really helps out the channel and me as ever, and don't forget to subscribe for more videos like this. Thank you guys so much for watching as ever, and remember, football can be as simple as black and white.
Something ain't right, I'm drowning in the ocean. I'm still alive, but I feel the fall in motion. I lost the fight and now I'm finally floating, but I still try to hide my emotion. Who am I in pieces? I've been broken. It's black and white, but my